Okay, so now we're going to start the Alliance team meeting. It's 1:06 p.m. on October 16th, 2023. And we have several members here today. We just do a round of introductions. That'd be great. And then I'll share my screen and get started on the plan presentation for today. Let's see, who is first? I have Mitchell, let's go to you, and then we'll go to Jeanine and then Catherine.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mitchell Breedlove. I'm a program coordinator here at Lake County Water Resources. I was the lead technician on this role. I stepped into a different position, but I'm still assisting.
Thanks. And Jeanine?
Hi, Mitchell. Hi, Angela. Catherine, I think you're new to me, and I'm very interested in meeting you since I do a ton of grant writing, and it's like, ooh, another grant writer, so cool. So I'm working as a consultant for Lake County on the Shoreline Stewardship Program and on our newly announced Clear Lake Integrated Science Symposium. I also work as a consultant for TERA, the Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance. I also work as a consultant for Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians EPA Environmental Protection Department, and for Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians TIPO, Tribal Historic Preservation Office or Cultural Department. I also work as a consultant or core team member with Cobb Watershed Education and Restoration Program. And I also work as a consultant for the Trinidad Rancheria and for the Maidu Summit Consortium, which is a group of tribes over that way, about 5 hours east. And I'm a poet and an essayist, and I play with Barbie dolls.
Thanks, Jeanine.
I love that. My name is Catherine Billheimer, and I am not a grant writer. I'm a grant manager, so a little bit different than you, Jeanine. Anyway, I am the grant manager for this project. I work at DPR, and we are just so excited to get it off the ground finally and work with you guys. So happy to be here.
Yay, great. Thank you guys. We have about 15 people that are invited to this, but again, the Alliance team meetings are not required. And so what I will do is go through the presentation to this group. And so it'll be recorded and on our website. And I'll share where that location will be a little bit. But this is, so it's kind of our second Alliance team meeting. We had one back in May. But then we had some issues with the grant, and so now this is officially the first. So I'll start this one off as the first, but we'll still keep the pilot, I guess, Alliance team meeting presentation will be on our website, and we'll still have that part of the library, and it still applies to this. So just a little background on that, and then of course we're very glad that this program is being funded by Department of Pesticide Regulation for us to do primrose removal and then native shoreline restoration and stewardship. And I just want to make sure I'm checking. Okay, good. The chat is all for good stuff. So this is kind of what will be today, a reintroduction of the project. I have some slides from a primrose removal work we've done so far. There's a lot of slides, but most of them are photos, so I'll just click through. Basically, I want to put everything out there on the table of what our efforts have been with primrose prior to the grant, to kind of set up where we see this grant project going, and then how we are creating sustainability in this program to go beyond this grant or other grants. And then the schedule for the year as far as the Alliance team meetings, and a little bit about specific work days we have coming up, and certain times of the year we have goals we want to meet, and then a time for question and answer. And come on, clickety click. Jeanine did a video, and I wanted to go ahead and show it to you guys. If there's any suggestions or comments, we can have Jeanine edit that, and then we'll have it published. We want it both embedded in our website and then also part of the YouTube channel from Lake County. But I think this is a good snapshot. It was on one of the project sites that we did before the grant started. But let me see here. I want to stop share, and then I want to share. Let's see here. Are you okay with that, Jeanine? I didn't really run it by you, but we're a small team here today to view this and provide any comments. Does that sound good? It's a good overview of the project, of what we're doing.
Absolutely. And this is the first time I'm looking at it in weeks, so fresh eyes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to optimize for video clip and share sound. And here we go, share. So you guys can see that. And let me know at all if you can't hear it or
Hi,
there we go.
my name is Franklin Lay, and I'm the diver with Bullfrog Underwater Services. And we're a commercial diving company on Clear Lake. My job takes me all around the lake, and I've seen through several years what the primrose is doing on the lake, and the effects it's having, how widespread it's become, and that's caused me to be pretty concerned about what we have here. This is kind of a nightmare plant, and it's very aggressive. It's spreading by seed, as far as I can tell, and it's getting everywhere, and that seems to be an exponential sort of deal, where it used to be here and there, thick in some spots, not even appearing in others, but now, with my job getting me all around the lake, I'm really seeing it everywhere. So, you know, a lot of people have a lot to lose if the shoreline goes away on Clear Lake, and I think that's the threat that we're looking at. In certain places, access is already diminished to the point where you can't run a boat out, and if that happens on a big grand scale, it's going to be devastating. So that's my concern. And meanwhile, every day we lose ground to this plant, and most people haven't even heard of it, don't really know the threat or even what it looks like. I tell people everywhere I go, don't let this get established here.
Hi, I'm Angela DePalma Dow. I'm Invasive Species Program Coordinator for Lake County Water Resources and the Watershed Protection District. I'm here today at Lucerne Harbor Park. We're doing a invasive species removal project and restoration project. Today it's July, so we're doing the invasive species removal portion. And the species that we are targeted on is called creeping water primrose. You've probably seen it around Clear Lake. It's got bright green leaves. Here's a little bit of it right here. It will have a really pretty yellow flower, and it can get pretty tall, 2 to 3 feet tall, and it creeps and it gets everywhere. It can obstruct channels, be navigation hazards. It also is a public health hazard. Too much primrose will harbor the mosquitoes that carry West Nile virus. One of the things we're doing with this project is removing the primrose, managing the primrose, and then we're going to follow through with some native plantings. For example, this is a natural native plant shoreline area. We have a native smartweed here. You can see there's a bee pollinating it. This little pink stalk. You can see the smartweed. It grows very tall, straight. It doesn't creep like the primrose, so it's really more beneficial for wildlife. When there's water here, the fish can swim through it. The ducks, the waterfowl, they can all use the species in a way they can't with the primrose. You can also see that we have the tule here, or the bulrush, growing with the smartweed. And this is really important for lake ecology and as well as a cultural beneficial use plant. And so the goal is for us to restore shorelines from just all 100% creeping water primrose to mixed native species communities like with the smartweed and the tule.
My name is Diana Cloud. I work over at TERA, crew member at TERA. I am pulling primrose. Primrose is a very invasive species. It's very bad for our lakes. It chokes out all of our native plants, especially our tules and our smartweed. We need our tules to help filter our lake, and we need them for certain fish. We also use tules for our cultural benefits as well. And it's not hard to pull it. Just take a couple of minutes outside every day in the cool, and just pull some some primrose, and that helps get rid of it.
All right. So here's one of the primroses. They have really long roots that grow. They grow out, and then cover all the native plants. And basically, it's so invasive that it blocks them out, basically killing them, suffocating them, and it just plans to take over everything. So that's why we're out here picking all of them up from the root out to kill them, so that way we can push it back all the primroses we can possibly.
I'll do that.
want to show you something.
You got a fish?
This plant is just as happy free floating in the water with these types of roots as it is being rooted in the mud, which is adds to the challenge. It's an aquatic plant, loves the water, and it's really well adapted to just take off and spread like crazy.
And we're working under a grant right now from the Department of Pesticide Regulation from the state of California. So we're really excited for this project. We got a great crew. This project will be going till 2025. We'll be working at sites like here, Lucerne Park, the Wright Wetland Preserve by the Lake County Land Trust, Anderson Marsh, Cache Creek area, Clark's Island, and the state park. If you have any questions about this project or anything that has to do with the lake or water quality, you can always call us at Lake County Water Resources at 707-263-2344. And you can also find us on Facebook at Lake County Water. Thank you so much.
Great. So thank you guys for watching that video. It's good to get a view of that. Thank you, Catherine. I love our team. That video was great. It's as long as it's not just me talking, it's the other folks on there as part of our Alliance team members that are able to go out there. I'm trying to, there we go. Okay. So here's our Alliance team. If there's any comments on the video, you guys can put them in the chat. I think Jeanine, everything's great. We just do a little title slide with some logos. I think it's good to go on our website. And I think the sound's okay. It might have had a little more background noise because you guys are seeing it through Zoom, but when I listen to it, there is some background noise, but it's kind of like, because they're out in the field, I think that's fine. But let's remember that our Alliance team is a collective of active, involved collaborators involved in the planning, executing, troubleshooting, sharing of methods and findings of the project. Or they're all invited to participate at this level. There's no absolute requirements. Of course, we have contracts with Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance, TERA, and Bullfrog Underwater Diving, and then Dr. Jeanine Pfeiffer is our shoreline stewards and outreach team member. So these are all the Alliance team members. Oh, question?
Yeah, sorry, Angela, to interrupt, because I'd like to take a screenshot of this slide, but there's a big black bar right above Alliance team.
Yeah, that's my oop. I wonder if I can hide that. Hide floating meeting controls. There we go. Did that remove it?
Now it put a bar in the, oh, there we go. All right,
Okay.
all gone. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll be able to get them back at some point. But so the committed Alliance team members, these are all the ones that wrote letters for the project and committed to participating. And then these are other partners that either just wrote letters of support, demonstrated support for the program, or that we're going to partner with. So really indebted to everybody on the Alliance team. And then now we're going to, why does this not have a title? There we go. I just want to demonstrate some of the Primrose projects we worked on. We alluded to them in the video, but just some examples of some of the things we worked on and how we're going to incorporate that knowledge into this project. And this is all work we've done with TERA, Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance, since 2021. Also with partners from Department of Ag. Some of the funds were provided by Department of Ag, County Department of Ag, and also special or Public Services, which is the Parks Department for county. And we really care about Primrose because this is some navigation. Here's an example of the Clear Lake Oaks channel. And you could see how navigation can be impeded by the Primrose. And a lot of these properties are, people retire here. And so they save up their whole life. They come, they want to get a place on the lakes. They can have fishing access, and that's how they want to spend their retirement. And then they get a property, and you can imagine how devastating it might be that you can't get your boat out because the Primrose is creating such a navigation hazard. And then in general, we just see it could be devastating or damaging to infrastructure. There's also ecological impacts to desirable and beneficial species. So particularly we look at tule. We can see here all this lagoon, which is dried from the drought, has primrose, 100% primrose growing across it. And they're slowly taking a toll on this patch of tule here. Tule are pretty good. Bulrush is pretty good about being resilient, but still they can be overcome by the primrose. And we talked about native smartweed. So the Polygonium, here is an example of the way that grows. And you can see how it's very kind of airy and wide and erect, and allows a lot of space both for waterfowl, fish, insects to move about, compared to the primrose, which is very solid. And so you can see how wildlife are restricted for that, in the different ways that those species grow. And just kayaking and navigating through this is so much easier and nicer than it is through the primrose, which is basically impossible. So here was the restoration or primrose management restoration team. And so this is back in 2021 when we started this work on Clark's Island. And we also had a contribution from Robinson Rancheria and Big Valley when we did some of the removal work and restoration. Here's an example of, this is our planned area. So we wanted to experiment with different ways to remove primrose. And so you can see these different colored boxes. Obviously the primrose had more wider extent than what's in the map. This is all open water, but we did some things like self-mulching. So we'd weed whack and leave a thick layer of primrose and weed whack on top and see if it would self-mulch itself. Didn't work. We did some hand removal. We even a section, this little yellow box, we scraped off the top like 2 to 4 inches of soil sediment with primrose, and tried to figure out which things worked. And then we did some areas of solarization. And here's an example of solarization on the right with a big plastic with the tires. The solarization was great because when there was low water, stuff got dried out, so we could actually walk across it. And when there's no water, the solarization is really good about getting rid of primrose. When there's some water, you can see these 2 spots over here on the southwest. The square on the southwest was half water, half aquatic when we put out the solarization, and it did not work. So if there's a little bit of water there, solarization won't work. If it's completely dry, solarization works great on getting rid of the primrose. And it works best if you weed whack. So you cut down and then that material sits on top, gets real hot, and completely gets rid of that primrose. So here's before in June 2021, low water, some water, but a lot of this is kind of like a little bit marshy, but you could kind of walk on it and you could see the extent of the primrose. This brown, really woody material is the primrose from the year before that had been herbicide treated, but you can see the tissue is still there. It just is dead branches, but the actual amount of the primrose is still there. And we did some sampling for cyanobacteria in places where there is water and there's high nutrients and visual presence of cyanobacteria. And then also some sampling, the water samples also resulted in cyanobacteria. So a lot of this project is to remove the primrose, which will open flow or allow water to have more open flow, which will help limit the amount of cyanobacteria, because cyanobacteria really likes the slow stagnant water. So it's a public health project as well. Okay, so we already talked about some experiments. Here's the area that we did basically with the schleiffing off of the top layer. You can see, and then we also did some plantings here of some native, or we did some carex and some cattails. Cattails aren't native, but we put them there because they're more desirable than the primrose. And then you can see here's an area on top where we weed whacked and did some self mulch for the experiment. Manual removal treatments, literally the before and after. Here in the middle is the before, and then the after. You can see the difference in how much primrose were removed and then the soil that was scooped out. And this was very, very labor intensive. It took like a week. So we didn't want this to be the best method just because it took so much effort. And you can see Will here on the left as he's actually pulling the stuff up with his hands. And then any desirables, we kind of picked and moved. So we had kind of a wall here. And to see how well they did. Again, we were just experimenting what kind of things could we do to maintain beneficial plants and desirables versus the non-desirables. And here's a small patch that we did hand removal that worked really well. And that's because this is right along the shoreline edge. So you can see where we pulled out primrose. It's a lot easier to pull out primrose when it's wet like this, and you can get the whole root. Whereas the site before was really hard because it was dry to get out that root. And so those areas are way better for solarization. Areas like this are better for hand pulling. Here's what it looks like when we fill up a trailer full or moving to put a trailer full. We have to move it off site. And it doesn't go to the compost transfer station because we don't know where that goes. If there's seeds in there, you know, that could be turned into compost and be distributed other places. So we have to take it out to an area that we know is going to be used for a burn pile, or it's going to sit there and dry out and not have any contact with water. So here's the pulling of primrose, hard work, manual work by hand. Depending on, you know, if it's really dry ground, it's really hard. And if it's closer to shoreline, it's a little bit easier, but it still takes that manual labor. Sometimes there was trash in there. Diana found this huge drum, and so she spent some time pulling that out just so this area, once planted tules, would not have that large trash in there. So here is the after we did some fall planting. So you can see the before on the left of the primrose, and then the right you can see the tules there, and then the primrose is all pulled out. So here we put a wall and tules after we did some primrose in that section. Here's the solarization experiment. Afterward, you can see how it totally knocks out some of that primrose. You can see that edge, and that's really where we saw some growth when we remove the solarization. Sometimes some of these edge will creep in. But you can see this big amount area, and we only did this if it was all 100% primrose, and you know there wasn't any other species in there. If there were some beneficials we wanted to keep, we tried to remove them and plant them somewhere else where they would survive. This is a great success here, and this site still looks like this. It's really exciting. We put the solarization fabric all the way up to this row of smartweed here. And this smartweed was able to grow in the spot, and it's still very big and vibrant at that site. So it's really exciting that that primrose control allowed the smartweed to like basically reestablish itself. And even though it was there, it wasn't, it was being overcompeted by the primrose. So here you can see on the right, the primrose and the smartweed, they look very close. They're very similar looking. And so part of this project was training staff to recognize the difference. And so going through and pulling out primrose and keeping the smartweed, or where to put the solarization so it wouldn't be going on smartweed, it'd just be going on primrose. That's another part of this project. And here's an example of another solarization. So big difference. Here's doing some patchwork. Here's the one on the right that was on the water that did not work. You guys can see we put a lot of tires there, put out a nice big chunk of plastic, and it just, if it's wet, the primrose will figure out how to grow out and grow under. So after we do primrose removal, we go and do harvesting for planting. Here's an example of the team doing work at Highland Springs. And we'll harvest the tules from the reservoir, and then we'll make sure that none of the clumps have invasives that we don't want to spread. So that requires us putting everything out on a table. Here's Lindsay from TERA doing a great education about what's the tule roots, what are the chunks that we need that'll replant, and then what are some susceptible or what are some suspicious looking invasives or plants that we don't want to transfer, and then we just put those back and we don't move those. I just want to make sure there's no comments or any questions so far because I took my bar away. So just talk if you have anything to add or have any questions, because I can't see the little chat.
Hey, Angela.
Yeah.
Angela, I've been taking notes on all the key points of each of your slides in the event that you want to insert those key points in kind of like a DIY slideshow that might not be included with audio, and also for a future publication.
Great. Thank you.
We can go over those later.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is the Clark's planning. So after we harvest the tules, they usually go in these big tarps in the back of the trucks or the trailer, and we clump them as much, or we kind of separate the clumps as much as we can, but sometimes we do that on site because then it helps with planting and helps retain the moisture. So we'll always set up a table, and then we'll go through and we'll split them out. And then here's the team. And this day was great to get help from Big Valley that have been doing shoreline restoration of tules for many years. And so they came out and they actually did a little education for us, and then helped plant us. You can see here Sarah Ryan and some other folks from Big Valley that helped us plant there. So it was great to have their input. And we did several different layers of tules, and then we used these stakes to basically keep that root ball in there. So if the water came up, the root ball wouldn't just pop out, it'd actually be held in there. And so here's what it looks like afterward. You could see there's a whole bunch of tule plantings in here along this edge later on in January 2022. After we got some water, and you can see how those tules are right there on the edge, and this was perfect. We were really excited, all these tules, to create a wall to prevent that primrose from creeping in and give us that open water. And here's May 2022, so later on, and you could see there's some primrose that's starting to get a hold in this area. This is the second year of the drought here on the left. But you can see a lot of those tules, they all got established, and they're growing up where over here on the northwest side, and then on the west side you can see some of them are growing up, but we kept tabs on them to make sure all the patches were growing. And we saw lots of wildlife using the area where the tules were, even though there's some primrose. And we will go through with the understanding that this is going to be long-term maintenance, so going through removing the primrose as it's growing in to give these tules the best chance of survival was something that we prioritize on these early spring work days. And we did a little bit more solarization. You guys can see the tules now are growing in. Some areas they're a little slower than others, and then we put some solarization fabric over these areas of big primrose to kind of help give the tules a little extra protection. And there's a patch of smartweed right here, which we didn't solarize. Then we look to the other side. So this photo on the left here is we wanted to clean out basically more areas of primrose for more shoreline restoration plantings. And so that's what this area was here. And so this was year 2, and you guys can see we did the same thing, kind of put in some plots. And these are some photo monitoring so we could kind of see before after photos. And here's a continuation with the tules. So the tules looking great, even in areas where primrose got to creep in over the season, the tules are still growing, and definitely seeing more open water. And this area would look way different. It would probably be covered with primrose at this point if we hadn't done the solarization the year before. Is it as great as I want it? No, because there was a lot of edge effects. If you look here above the dock on the left, none of that was treated for solarization or pulled. So that's a lot of primrose that's creeping in, or has ability to flower and seed, and move about the area. More of the crew. This is especially around the tule plantings, doing removal of primrose. And you can see the area where we didn't get any plantings done, but we had solarization, still has some open water. But there's a lot of this edge effects coming in. So all this is stuff that we learned going in the future for management. So this area here in the black box was an area that was hand removed of primrose and then planting of tules, and it's directly adjacent to an area that had no management, no pulling, and no planting tules. You guys can see the difference of the primrose on the shoreline there. So this is a big one. You know, we maintenance this area in the black box. We did a couple days, maybe 2 days of pulling primrose in the summer season, planting tules in the fall, and then another work day in the spring of pulling primrose. So you can see the difference between that and the area right above it, which had no management. And then I showed this picture before, but this is just additional solarization. And we left the solarization on most of the year, or most of the summer season, as soon as it was dry. And you can see lots of native plants in this area. So we have some smartweed, tules growing. This photo in the middle, this was an area that was all solarized by the bridge. And because the primrose was all died, there was not these structure obstructions of the primrose like veg structure. And you can see there's some nesting bass right there. Are the bass native? No, but they're wildlife. They're using the area, and they're a desirable species for our county. And here's some examples of some tules with their stakes that are growing really well. These are pretty good established tules here. So we did some additional solarization last summer, 2022. You guys can see the area again where there was 100% primrose, and it was dry. We put out these larger areas, larger scale, and you can see we covered it all. So the first year we did blocks of solarization and moved it around. And this year we put a whole area of solarization and just left it for the whole season, to kind of get this whole area cleared of primrose and have as minimal edge effects as possible. And then again, followed up with some tule harvesting. We removed some tules from the Lakeport Water Treatment Overflow Pond, which is a great use of tules there, and created a little more space for that, for overflow. And then we went to Highland Springs again, and here's the crew that did some removal there. There's Mitchell. Thanks, Mitchell, for your help that day, and the whole TERA crew that helped out. It was great. Got a lot of tules in a short amount of time. And then we planted the tules here at Clark's Island in a different area. So this was all on the north or the south side of the bridge. The idea that within the next 5-10 years, we're going to cover that island around with tules, and it'll just be maintenance, spot treatment of primrose with the tule, with the restored tules around there. So the drought was over last year, at least for this area, and you guys can see the water levels came up. Very little primrose growing there this year, but also a lot of the tules were submerged, so we don't really know yet how well they did. Tules in Clear Lake have evolved with high and low water levels, so we're hoping that they survive, because this is their forte. They were locally sourced, so we know they come from an area that's used to being inundated, flooded, and then drought, and flooded, then drought. That's what they do here in Clear Lake. So we'll have more photos later of Clark's Island, but here's some other sites. Here's Lucerne Harbor. So this was this year, because Clark's Island didn't have much primrose, we couldn't do that many work days there, and so for the training and preparation for this grant, we took the crew out in August to do removal at Lucerne Harbor, and this was where the video was that we saw earlier, and you guys can see here's our quadrat. So here's the before, thick, heavy primrose, and the after, and such a big difference on that shoreline, and it still looks pretty good over there. And then we had a couple work days at State Park, and this is from the dock, and you can see this primrose is really thick, more open water. So we had to have a lot of help from Franklin diver, and then TERA staff put on waders and got on the boat, and we're actually pulling large amounts of primrose over to the dock to be pulled out. And this area still is really clear, and really clears up that navigation spot. And I think this will help for next year too. There'll be way less primrose in this area, so it should be a lot easier to remove by spot treatment management as part of this grant. And then we'll continue to move around the channel to get that primrose. And it really gives the natives a chance. I don't know if anybody's been to the state park recently, but I think the drought really knocked down some of the primrose, because a lot of the canals and channels there is tons of smartweed, and it looks great. So I don't know if that was the state park effort, remove primrose. I don't think so. He didn't say anything about that, Ryan, who's our Alliance team member, but there is a lot of smartweed out there in the channels, and it looks really nice. Lots of wildlife using it. It's not inundated with the primrose. So this is the schedule for the Alliance team meetings. It's the same Zoom information every time. And it's every Monday, or it's the Mondays at 1 p.m. on these dates. So it's quarterly. So every 3 months. And so this is the general schedule, if anybody wants to take a screenshot of that. And this obviously only goes to March 17, 2024. So we're going to have more up until 2025, but this is about the ones for the next year and a half. And these are all the meetings will be recorded on our website. So if you go to Lake County Water Resources, you're going to go to a tab called Programs and Projects, and under the Aquatic Plant Management one, there's a specific tab called Primrose. So when you go to the program Aquatic Plant Management, this blue tab on the left will show up. And if you click on Primrose, this is that page. So here's an example of what Primrose looks like. And here's the Alliance team meeting recordings. There'll be a list of them. And then there's a video, a webinar I did about Primrose for property owners. So it talks about what is Primrose, why do we want to manage it, and then some things that property owners can do on their own property to manage Primrose. And then this webinar we're going to build on as part of the grant for Department of Pesticide Regulation to include the incentive program, which removes Primrose and then does restorative plantings on a cost share basis. Some of the next steps for us, so continue working with Bullfrog and TERA. We have to finish doing some equipment, materials, purchasing, and then choosing work days. We usually, in December, January, we look at this, choose the work days throughout the spring and summer. So we kind of have save the dates or days held for work. And then we can schedule around those because TERA gets booked really fast, and so does county. We do have some end of season work days coming up. So October 25th, we're going to do half day at Clear Lake Campground. So that's Cache Creek, Anderson Marsh border. And we're going to finish pulling some primrose from kayaks, and then identify how many Thule plugs we're going to need for that. And Clear Lake Campground, it is a private property. It's on Cache Creek, which is an outlet of Clear Lake, but they are helping us troubleshoot and refine our incentive program, working with a private property owner that borders one of our public sites at Anderson Marsh State Park, but also giving us lots of feedback about, working with the application and working with the TERA staff, what kind of things we need to be asked to be provided, things that we need on site. So they're really helping us develop that program. I think we're doing some seed collecting the 26th for Thules and smartweed and other riparians with TERA. I don't know exactly where that is, and I have to confirm that, but definitely we have a work day the 25th, and then seed collecting the 26th, which is a Wednesday, Thursday combination. We usually do Thule harvesting and planting between December and March. It really depends on the weather. If there's enough moisture out there, it's been cold, that's the best time to get those Thules out, and then go planting when we know that the same conditions will be there. And we like to have 2 days where we spend all 1 day harvesting, and then another day planting. And then we'll have our spring training around April, May. So this will to bring our diver on board, training with TERA, any new staff from TERA, any new staff from our department, their work training days, and we will invite the Alliance team out on those days to get trained, learn what we're doing, also participate and get their hands dirty. So that's for water resources and TERA. Water resources, we just want to finish the video, publish that, get that on our website, use that as part of our advertising for our incentive program, one of our educational resources. And then we just need to finalize a couple things for the property owner application form. Thanks, Mitchell, for starting that when you were in your previous position. I just want to make sure that we are including everything we need to be, because the county is going on private property to do some work with a public grant. And so we just want to make sure that we have everything covered and thought about before we do that work. And then we're going to continue working with our shoreline steward contractor, which is Dr. Jeanine. I'm so excited she's on here. And so she took the position and the work that we had regularly intended for an intern. But I think this is going to be way better because Janine's really familiar with the area, and we're going to and a veteran of making outreach educational material that's effective. And so I'm really glad she's on board and helping with this project. And Janine's going to be here in the area for a while, so that'll be great with sustainability for the program. And then we continue reporting and tracking on that. So thank you for the presentation today. Okay, good. So I'm 15 minutes early before 2. And let me know if you guys have any questions. I hope that was a good run through of efforts for Primrose so far, what we plan to do through the Alliance Team grant. And, I talked a lot about Primrose, but a lot of this program is focused on Thule restoration. Primrose removal only works if we can get really strong Thules established to fill that niche where Primrose would be. And then it's a lot easier to go through and hand remove Primrose when there's a nice established bank of Thules there. That's the big thing we're going to have to communicate to property owners that are participating in this. We're not going to prioritize properties where they just want invasive species removal and no planting commitment for native communities. It's one and the other. We're not going to do, if they want some Thule plantings alone and they don't have Primrose, that's great. We can do that. But we really have to team up the Thule plantings, native plant restoration, in order for the Primrose removal to be successful. And we're really going to stress that with the property owners. That is the end of my slideshow. Is there any questions? Oh, there's a lot of stuff in chat. Okay. But I'm sure that was, let's see. Thank you.
Yeah, Angela, yeah, you don't need to read all of that. It's just me taking notes and we can go over it later. Could you go back to the slide that had Big Valley helping out with the Thule replanting? Because I just want to take a screenshot of that, because I'm hoping to get together with you to pulled together a summary sheet specifically on the planting. Yeah. And we've still got that, the boxes in front of it.
It should
Sorry,
go away now.
Yeah.
Okay.
That last, I'm waiting for that. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. And I just, since this is being recorded, I wanted to note that Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians has received 2 separate grants. One that started 2 years ago that we're a little behind on, and one that's starting this fall, specifically for reestablishing tule, replanting tule, setting up nurseries both at Big Valley and at the Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance. And so I'm hoping to work with Angela to pull together a summary sheet on the tule replanting that's gone on so far, and make sure that Lake County is included in the next team meeting where we discuss these 2 grants.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jeanine. Yeah, and this, I think this one was, well, I put the number there, 130 tule plugs were planted, and I think the other one was,
Like 270, 275.
yeah, something like, yeah, 275. So the first year, the lessons learned from this first year was, the harvesting took a long time, as we were learning we have the system. The planting was like lickety split, man. Everybody out there, we all planted stuff, and it was like 10 o'clock and we were done for the day. And it was, we didn't have any more tulies to plant, so we couldn't do anything else. And it was already winter, so all the primrose had kind of senesced and gone away. But so that's the learning, is harvest way more tulies, like spend a lot of time harvesting and harvest a lot, even if it's big clumps, because the planting is really fast. I mean, there's a lot of people here, but even, we had other work days where we didn't have as many people, and the planting just goes really fast. And also more people want to show up for planting than primrose pulling. I don't know why, right? I mean, but it's a lot funner to plant, and you're, than pulling that primrose all day. But that's why we're really grateful for TERA to be involved. And they're so efficient and effective, and really happy with the work that they're doing, and they're just great to work with. So I really appreciate them.
Yeah, Angela, sorry, could I have one more slide? I think you had a slide where Lindsay was showing folks how to
there you go.
Inspect the plugs. Ah, there it is. Perfect. Yeah, and just to reiterate that tule is a culturally significant species, and both an ecological keystone species and a cultural keystone species, in the sense that it plays an oversized role for its population, both in local aquatic ecologies and local tribal cultures. So tule reeds were historically and traditionally eaten as foods. The base of the root is eaten, and also tule reed skirts are part of regalia for women, and also for male dancers in roundhouse dancing, and they're also used as part of the headgear regalia. And of course, there's the annual Tule Boat Festival. So it's super, super important to tribes, which is why it's fantastic that Lake County is taking the lead on this project, and has put so much time and effort, and is working collaboratively with tribes. This is a really big deal. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for those notes. Let me see. I don't have my, okay, there we go. Show video. There we go. Are there any other questions on that? Thanks, Jeanine, for those extra comments. The Big Valley, Robinson were essential supporters for this project. And TERA, of course, is obviously as our partner. Okay. So that is what I have today for the Alliance team meeting. 9 minutes until 2. If there's any questions, Catherine, do you have any questions about the is everything, there's no surprises with this, right? What we had written in the grant and then, you know, what we're presenting, what we're planning on doing, there's no surprises or questions or anything that,
No surprises. And I do just want to reiterate that for all the reasons that you mentioned in your great presentation, as well as everything that Jeanine just added to that, the reasons why we're so excited at DPR about this project as well. Excited to be funding you and working with you, and I'm really excited to get out for any kind of a work day. So please let me know. I'll be there.
okay. The next one we have is October 24th. And if that's too soon, let me know, but we'll have several tule harvesting and planting days throughout the winter season too. So
Yeah, I'm busy next week, but I will join you for some harvesting.
okay, yeah, those are really fun. So great. So is there any other questions? Mitchell, do you have anything? You were a tech on this project this year, and led some of the days that I was unable to be there. Did you have any comments or anything?
No comments. This is a great presentation. Glad to be a part of it.
Thanks. Thank you. So that's it that we have today. Thanks for all your notes, Jeanine. And when this recording, when I get it, I'll put that in the notes in this folder. And I believe our next Alliance meeting is check my schedule, January 15th, 2024. I think I scheduled it out of all the holidays and stuff, and we either should have a work day under our belt or have our work day plan for harvesting. And yes, Catherine, the video will definitely, we are able to now embed videos on our website. And then it'll be on our YouTube channel for water resources. So there'll be multiple links for it. And depending on what we're doing around the 15th, sometimes, you know, I said originally the Alliance team meetings might be in person, like at the field, or they'll be Zoom. So if we have a harvesting day, if we can schedule it around on the January 15th, that would be just pay attention to that, which I'll forward a notice a work day. Great. Okay, thank you everybody so much. I appreciate it. If you think of anything else to add, just send me an email. And again, we'll have this recording once it downloads. I'll put it up in the list on the Primrose section on our website. And then when Jeanine and I get in that title slide well, Jeanine will do all the work. Thank you, Jeanine. On the video, we'll have that on YouTube and have the links out for everybody too. So thank you. And Jeanine, yes, I will save the chat and send it to you. Yep. Yeah, it won't work yet. It'll record the chat. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.
Nice to meet you,
Thank you,
Jeanine.
Angela. Yep, same. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.